Rob Nelson here. Today we are going to create this. Now this photo was taken with the GoPro Hero 5 and we're going to walk through how that's a little bit better than the previous versions. It is a much better camera. And part of the reason I like this is that I do professional photographs, I do professional films, but sometimes I just like to explore. I like to not carry all of this stuff with me, and all I have to do is take this with me. I can get into a cave, I can go exploring. If I happen to see something awesome, I clip it to a rock, I start taking photos, and I'm not weighed down by all of the camera equipment, so I can also experience the adventure while I capture it. And that is the really awesome thing about carrying a GoPro with you. The new camera does have a lot of neat features. It shoots RAW. Awesome feature. It also shoots wide dynamic range photos, just generally, which is really awesome as well. I'm going to show you some of the differences. Now, before we go through that, let me just explain what we're going to do in this photo. Here's the photo. Essentially, we're going to amplify the shot. So we are going to be adding in these light rays. That is probably the main feature that I'm going to be talking about. I'm also then going to show you how to make the image suit what you probably saw in reality. Let me back you up a little bit and show you some of the images that were taken with this GoPro. Okay, now here's one of the images I started out with. I basically set the GoPro down and just snapped a shot, but this is not a raw image. If you go up here to the inspector, you can see it was shot at ISO 800. The 3mm and the f2.8 don't change on the GoPro, but it was at 1/3 of a second. Now if I zoom in, you can see, well, I wasn't totally standing still, and you have to do that. My face is kind of blown out and the background is dark, so there's not a huge range in this photo. However, if I move to the next one, this one was shot at 2 seconds. So it was open much longer, which allowed this background to be more exposed. But my face isn't really overexposed too much, so there is quite a lot of range between my face and the background. You see the difference? We'll go back. You see the difference? So quite a nice feature in using that as a GoPro. So the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to do some basic adjustments of this here in Lightroom, and then we're going to move it into Photoshop to do the final adjustments. Essentially what we'll do is we're going to clean this shot up. This little cable that's coming down, because we have a light down here, I'm going to take out. I'm going to take out the water bottle. And then, because it was really awesome to see the light coming down from the top, I'm going to amplify that. It was coming down as a light ray, but it's hard to see it in this particular shot. So we're going to give the light ray a little bit more of a feature. And because the light that we used had a very orange glow to it, it was a work light that we bought at Lowe's, I'm going to change the color of that light. Basically in this cave, I want the cave to feel like a cave, maybe like something from the Lord of the Rings, so maybe more of a blue color. And then we'll just work from there and try to recreate what was a really amazing impression that I got of this cave in this new photo. This is the only image we're going to be working with, but I'm going to right click and go create virtual copy. That will allow me to start working with this thing. And essentially I'm going to work with it in two different ways. One to just pull out me, one to pull out the background. It's a little bit easier that way, I've found. Actually, let's create another virtual copy and I'll just keep one of them the same. All right, now this particular copy, let's just work on me. Let's go to the Develop tab. Okay, I like to always just bump up the clarity a tad. If you go too much, it looks terrible. Just a little bit. It kind of increases the contrast around my face, increase the saturation. Now let's bring down the highlights. And let's bring up the shadows, because I don't want things to be too contrasty. This is the first thing I want to do in this photo. And I'm always zooming in to check in on it. And I'm going to increase the exposure just a tad. Now I like the color in this particular part of the frame, so I'm not going to change things too much. And I think that's good. I actually won't be changing too much. So now, while I'm on it, I'm going to go up to Photo, Edit in my Photoshop CC 2017. Now I'm going to edit a copy with Lightroom adjustments. That's important. Okay, so now it's going to open up the image in Photoshop so that we can start working with it. First thing I always do, I go over here to my background layer, I click on it and I go Command J on the Mac. That creates a duplicate. That way I always have one layer that is the exact same and I don't mess with it at all. All right, let's go back to Lightroom real quick. Now in this next one, this is the other virtual copy, I'm going to adjust the background of this one. So this is where I'm looking, right back here. Now in particular, I want this cave to be a little bit more blue. So I'm just going to bring the blues down increase the clarity because I think it gives a really neat look to it. And I'm going to make a few more adjustments. In particular, I'm going to bring down the exposure a little bit. But I'm going to make this thing really blue, basically on the far ends. Obviously, this middle bit looks terrible, but the cave is going to start looking neat. Remember, I'm really just looking for the blue in this part of the cave. We can bring the saturation down a little bit, and we can bring the highlights down. We don't need all of that. Okay, I think that looks pretty good. Now, same thing, we're going to go to this image and photo, edit in Adobe Photoshop CC. We're going to edit copy with Lightroom adjustments, and that will bring it into Photoshop. So now we have both images here, one on top of the other. Now, simply, this is the way I do it. I kind of take the tab down here, and I grab this image, and I drag it in, right over the top. So now you can see right over the top, I have a slightly different image. What I'm going to do is I'm going to add a layer mask right here, which will allow me to start painting in where I want it. So essentially what I do with my layer mask is I can go up here to click invert, now nothing is visible. Now with my brush tool and white as the color, I can start painting in the areas that I want the cave to be blue. So for me, I find it really easy to use my pen tool and go over here to my Cintiq. With a very soft brush, I just check, make sure that the hardness is set to 0. I can just paint it in. And for right now, I'll do a sloppy job, but this is how it's going to work. Okay, essentially this is what we got. Obviously it doesn't look fantastic right at the moment. Okay, obviously we have a ways to go with this image. Now the next thing we're going to do is I'm going to add a curves adjustment layer to the whole thing. I think the darks need to come down a little bit, and we'll just make sure that the lights stay up. It gives me just something to start playing with. Now before I do anything more, I think what I need to do is I need to clean up this image. So I'm just going to use my clone stamp tool right here. Now all you do with that is you hold down the option key and you select an area that you want to clone stamp from, and then you just paint it in. Okay, now this whole thing needs some adjustment. Let's go up to my curves and let's just make it a clipping layer. Option Command G turns it into a clipping mask. This curves is now only affecting the background layer. So the blue, I think the blue needs to desaturate a little bit. We'll add one more clipping mask. Okay, let's go up to hue and saturation. Option Command G, turn it into a clipping mask. I think the whole thing needs to be desaturated a little bit and the lightness needs to be decreased. I'm going to do another curves adjustment down here. I think I want to increase the blues in the shadows a little bit, like that. The green a little bit. So there's more of a red light coming in. So really what I'm trying to do is give this effect that light is just penetrating down through here. Now the thing that's going to make this whole thing pop is these light rays coming in. So let's add them first and then we can adjust later. So I'm going to go up to the polygonal lasso tool. And I'm going to just do a rough outline of what is being affected by the light rays, something like this. And I'm going to go to the adjustment tool and go to curves. Okay, so now right here it loaded that selection in the mask right here. So if we adjust and maybe we just take the shadows up a little bit, we want basically the darks to kind of be increased a little bit. Basically it doesn't look real at all. So what we want to do is we want to add a blur to this mask. So we're going to go up here to Filter, Blur, Gaussian Blur. And we want a really large number. You see what's happening here? I want a really large number so that it's faded in. This still doesn't look all that great because of the way it's coming in. You know, with light, there's a lot of fade coming in from different colors. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create another one coming in. This time probably more like this on me. Create a curve. It's going to load that into a new mask. I can take this one. I can do slightly different things with this. Maybe something like this. I can increase the red in it so it looks like it's coming down more from the sun. Take a little bit of green out of it, take a little blue out of it, much more red coming down. And again, I want to make sure that while I'm selected on the mask, I go to Filter, Blur, Gaussian Blur. Now, maybe something like that. It's starting to look like something is basically coming down into here. I quite like how that works. Okay, now there's going to be a lot of playing with this. I just want to show you all the basic tools. even though we couldn't quite see the sun from here, so there might not be a solar flare. I wanted to add one because it gives this effect that it's coming down, shining through this cave opening. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a new layer. And I want the layer to be black in general. And then I'm going to go to Filter, Render, Lens Flare. Now what I'll do is I'm just going to take this lens flare kind of down into this region. I think that's about where the cave flare was. Obviously there's a lot of different lens flares you can choose from. I just selected that. Now what I'll do is I'll go up to my layers and I'll change the layer style. So maybe I'll choose linear light. See how that looks. Now I quite like how linear light looks, but the opacity is way too high, so what we'll have to do is we'll have to drop it down just a little bit. Okay, I'm going to try one more solar flare just to see if it looks any better. Again, create a new layer, make it black, go up to Filter, we'll go to Render, Lens Flare. This one, let's do the 50 to 300. Okay, this one, maybe let's try linear dodge. And this one gives kind of a very nice glow coming in. Again, we're going to have to adjust the exact spot on that. The other thing I'm going to do now is I can go down to my curves adjustment layer and I can start playing with it. Find something that has just the right look that I want. Just for fun, let's add a little light ray coming out of my flashlight as well. So that's more or less the process of creating an image like this. There's a lot of different tools that you're using. In this particular tutorial, I wanted you to see how these light rays are formed, how you can create them, how you can start manipulating them. I also wanted to show you how the GoPro Hero 5 images look when you start working with them. You can get a lot out of it, and using the new RAW feature, a big plus. Jonas, by the way, is in the Amazon right now, shooting more tutorials on how to shoot down in that particular environment. Stay tuned for those. We're releasing videos every Tuesday. Not all of them are like this, which is photo editing things. There are a lot of things related to filmmaking and being a filmmaker in general. I will see you next Tuesday. Thanks for watching.